Hi guys, Aaron here with Ghost Raptor Gaming and Guns, and today we have the Smith & Wesson SW40VE, also known as the Smith & Wesson Sigma. Now, full disclosure, Smith & Wesson didn't send me this gun. They don't even make this gun anymore. They make a newer version of it. I bought this gun with my own money at Bullseye Shooting Supplies in Woonsocket, Rhode Island for $257, including taxes and fees. And that's a fairly typical price. $250 to $300 is what you see for these guys. Now, the gun has a 4.5-inch barrel and it weighs 24 ounces, so it's quite light, particularly for a 40. But why did I buy this gun? Well, back when I was a younger man, my first pistol was the same gun, but a 9mm. And I saw it in the case, kind of had a little bit of nostalgia for it. It was fairly cheap, and I said, you know what, I'm going to get that and I'm going to review it because there's a lot of these floating around out in the used market. If you check Gunbroker or any local gun shops, you're probably going to see one in there. Now, these guns were available in 9mm, 40, and 357 SIG. There was also like a subcompact version that was available in 380, although I have never seen one of those. My understanding is they are fairly rare. And we're going to go through the rest of this gun the way we always do, front to back, top to bottom, talking about the features and caveats as we go. So without further ado, oh wait, I lied. There is a little more to talk about on this gun. You're going to notice that this review is very Glock-like, and that's because Smith & Wesson got sued. Smith & Wesson was sued by Glock for patent infringement, as this is very Glock-like and takes a lot of features from it, and Smith & Wesson actually settled that out of court, paid an undisclosed amount to Glock, and had to make design changes to this gun. So, again, it's very Glock-like, so you're going to see a lot of similarities there. But we'll go through the gun anyways, front to back, top to bottom, the way we always do, and I'll give you overall impressions as I go. So, first of all is the sights. These sights are a polymer variety. They are a 3-dot variety with a large dot in the front and 2 small dots in the back. Here's your large dot in the front and the smaller dots on the rear. These sights almost remind me of Novak sights. They're very much squared off. They're very clean in their presentation. They come up nice. Equal height is easy to get. Equal weight is easy to get. Pretty good sights. I actually like them quite a bit. Now, slide serrations. We'll talk about the slide serrations. There are none on the front, which I like because, as I've stated dozens of times before at this point, I don't like them. They drive the cost of the gun up, and they encourage you to put your hand towards the muzzle of the weapon, which I don't care for. The slide serrations, however, are quite good. They are a slightly angled variety. They're fairly deep. They are actually quite tactile. It's very easy to get a good grip on these. No issues there. The extractor, again, very Glock-like, just a little bit longer. As you can see it right there, it is quite good. I had only one issue, and I'll get into that a little later on. Now, the dust cover here has a proprietary kind of design to it. Like an early H&K USP had that stupid proprietary rail. Well, Smith & Wesson must have taken a page out of their book because they did the same thing there, and it's stupid. The idea was basically you had to get accessories specifically made for these guns, either by Smith & Wesson or through another company that they contracted through to make them. The good news is that there are converters for this from companies like Laserlight. They just clamp on and convert it to a standard pick rail, and they run about 20 bucks or so. Usually a little under, $10 to $15 on Amazon, depending on the company, okay? The disassembly levers are on both sides. Again, very similar to a Glock. They are right there and right there. And it kind of acts as a memory pad, but you're not inadvertently going to push that down and then have the gun spontaneously disassemble when you go to fire it, right? So no issues there, very easy. The slide lock slide release on this gun I like a lot too, much like the sights. It is flat, it is serrated, and it is extended right here. And this is kind of what Glock should have done from the beginning with their slide lock slide releases. These are, to me, a marked improvement over a standard Glock one, right? I have, my size glove is like right between small and medium, and I can reach that without actually having to break my grip, which is really nice for me. So I enjoy that quite a bit. The trigger guard is rounded, it is thick, and it is partially serrated at the front. There's just a few serrations right here. It is a little small, so gloved hands might have a hard time getting in there, especially because of the trigger, and we'll talk about that later. It is undercut right here, but not a lot. It could be better, but it is what it is. This is an old gun, whatever, what have you. The beaver tail here is nice and thick as far as height, and it's quite comfortable. It makes it quite easy to get a high grip on the gun when I come up, and I enjoy that quite a bit. It's very, very ergonomic, this entire gun, actually. The magazine release is left side. I believe it is not reversible because this is an early design, as I said, like early 2000s. It's right here. It is serrated, and it is quite good. It has this kind of shelf right here on both sides as well to help protect that. And I had no issues with it. By the way, speaking of magazine release and magazines, they drop free. No issues there, okay? These are a metal variety magazine, okay? Standard capacity on those is 14 rounds in 40, 14 rounds in 357 SIG, and 16 rounds in 9mm. Now, I like the base plates on these guys because they are long and they are wide, while being almost flush fit in the gun. Well, basically flush fit in the gun. And I like that because if you look at the bottom of the grip right here, you'll note that it's not scalloped, but it's thinner at the bottom, and the magazine base plate extends past the front of the grip, and that makes it very easy to grab and strip a mag out if you need to do that. Now, while we're here, let's talk about the grip in general. The back strap has a squared texturing to it, as well as the front strap, as you can see right there. The side has standard checkering with the Smith & Wesson logo imprinted on it. That is on both sides. It's a little smooth, but not too much. I like the Glock Gen 4 or the CZ-P10. I really like their texturing more than this, but this isn't bad at all. It allows you to get a good grip on the gun, so really no issues there, and just it's a very ergonomic gun overall. Now, I think that about covers it except for the trigger. So we're going to talk about the trigger. The trigger is not great, okay? So it is a flex type trigger, or I should say hinge type trigger. So you have a little bit of take up there, and it's curved very hard instead of being like a flat face trigger. And then you've got, once you have this initial take up out of here, which again is quite a lot, but that's mainly due to this hinged portion, you've got like one wall, and then sometimes like a second wall, and then a break. It's spongy, it's a little gritty, and it's very heavy, okay? It's like a 10-pound trigger pull. It's not great. And I guess the idea behind that was Smith & Wesson wanted a heavier trigger pull because the gun doesn't have a safety, so they don't want people to negligently discharge their firearms. But the trigger on it is abysmal as a result. Now, here is the reset. It's audible, but not quite tactile, and it's quite literally all the way out, except for, again, that hinged portion. So, there you go. The trigger is really lousy. The good news is that there is an Apex trigger kit from Apex Tactical, as well as a spring kit for the trigger. Both plus shipping is going to run you about $100, and then if you don't know how to do it yourself, you're going to have to pay a gunsmith to do that, so roll in a little bit more money towards that, and we'll talk about that as far as overall value in just a minute. Now, the trigger is abysmal, as I stated. I'll show you it one more time, just so you can see it. A little bit of take up from the hinge portion. Yeah, easily 10 pounds. It's not good. There's your reset. Well, how does the poor trigger translate to accuracy? Let's talk about it. Well, what I noted was, with quite a bit of practice, you can get really good results on your accuracy for a 10-pound trigger, right? But is it great? Let's get into it. So here is me, 7-yard standing PMC 165 grain full metal jacket, okay? So here I've got like a 2.5 inch group. This is about a 2-inch group, actually a little bit more than that because my third one was just over the paper right here. Then you have this one, 2 here, just over 1 inch, and there's that third one, but that was a flyer on my part. Like I said, the trigger is difficult to master. Same thing here, I got 2 in about 1 inch, and then I have a flyer here, and then I got one there that's about a 2-inch group. Love these Champion targets, by the way. They are my preferred target. This is me, PMC bronze, 165 grain, 7 yards standing. Open this up for you. And this is with a couple hundred more rounds through the gun. As you can see, once I started taking my time, 1.5-inch group. That's almost a 3-inch group. That's about 2.5 inches. You got 2 within 1 inch, dead bullseye by the way, and then 1 a couple inches under that, and then you kind of see this pattern kind of repeats itself where you can put rounds right where they need to go, relatively speaking, but for me, I saw about 2.5 inch, 3-inch groups. How about Nora? And ladies, this is something that you need to take note of if you ever see one of these guns and you're like, hey, it's cheap and I like the way it looks, maybe I'll get it. Take note for what happened with Nora. Now Nora's a slightly better shooter than me, and I kind of prepped her on the trigger a little bit beforehand, so she did fairly well with it. That's about a 2.5-inch group. That's a 2-inch group. There's just over 1 inch right there, really good there, and then about 1 inch right here, and then about 2 inches right there overall. So she did quite well. However, she hated it, right? She absolutely hated the gun. Mostly because of the trigger, partially due to the recoil. She's not recoil shy, she's shot plenty of 40s before, but this one is light, and for whatever reason, it is a little bit snappy, and she hated it as a result. Here's another group. This is her Nora 7-yard standing Blazer brass 165 grain. So she did pretty good with this. 1 flyer there, about a 2-inch group there, just over 2 inches there. Look at that. That's a 1-inch group all day. That might be even a little under, and there you go, just over 1 inch. So Nora did quite well with this. How about this note? 2-handed pulls. What do I mean by 2-handed pulls? What I mean was, after her first 14 rounds, or first magazine through this gun, she couldn't pull the trigger after that using just her index finger. So she ended up having to put both index fingers onto the trigger and squeezing the trigger simultaneously because it was so heavy that it really just tired her hands out. She couldn't shoot it much more after that. And so she absolutely hates this gun based on the trigger pull. Now, like I said, you can get an Apex trigger and have that installed and all that stuff, but where does that get you? All right, or you can just practice a lot. Just go shoot, once a week instead of every other week. But where does that get you? And this is the real Achilles heel of this gun. If you spend the extra money to get the trigger kit installed, now instead of, let's say, $250, you're at $350 or $400. Or if you just spend a lot, or you put a lot more rounds through this and practice with it a lot more, again, that ammunition costs money. So where does that put you? In my opinion, you're better off just getting a gun with a better trigger. Now, it is capable of good accuracy. Don't get me wrong. It is reliable. I only had 1 failure in 500 rounds with this gun, and that was due to just the rim of the case didn't slide under the extractor, right? The extractor wasn't able to slip into the extractor groove on the cartridge case, and that induced a failure to go in the battery, which I had to clear. Other than that, 499 rounds, no problem. So it's reliable, okay? So is the 9mm version. 3,000 rounds through that one, easily 3,000 rounds through that one. And I had 0 failures of it with any kind. So these are reliable guns, they're accurate guns, the triggers suck, and then when you spend that money to correct the trigger or just get more training on the gun, what ends up happening is you're now in that $400, $500 price range. You might as well just buy a slightly better gun. And when it comes to self-defense shooting with this gun, I noted it, from low ready to firing and firing a controlled pair. Basically, get the sight on target, put 2 rounds into the target as fast as you possibly can, and see what happens. I noticed that this gun, due to that heavy trigger pull, was shooting low left, like a lot, like 6 inches low, 6 inches to the left. So if you have a smaller target, you might not even hit them. Then where are those rounds going? You're accountable for all those rounds that you send down range. And then even if you do hit the target, are you hitting a vital area? So the trigger really just ruins this gun, which is otherwise a really good gun. Like I said, I like everything else about it, but the trigger just kind of knocks the wind out of the sails. Now, disassembly, I'm not going to even bother showing disassembly. It is just like a Glock. Drop your magazine, ensure the weapon's clear, point in a safe direction, pull the trigger, pull back slightly while depressing the levers here, and the gun comes apart. So that about does it for the whole thing. Bottom line is, if you need a gun, I think you should generally just avoid these. I'd like to say that you should get one, but the truth is I just don't. I think that due to this trigger, it wouldn't be necessarily safe and adequate for you to use for self-defense. So range toy, collectability, maybe that kind of thing, sure. But unless you can find one with an Apex trigger already installed in it, I would say don't buy it. And I hate to do that. I hate to give a negative review and say I don't recommend this gun, but unfortunately it's going to happen sometimes. So it is what it is on this guy. Now, with all that being said, even though I'm not recommending this gun, if you like this kind of content, go ahead, like, share, subscribe, sign up for notifications, hit the notification bell so you can see my videos when they come out. And if you really enjoy the content and you want to help support the channel, you can go ahead and hop over to Patreon. $1 a month goes a long way to helping me with ammunition, targets, possibly even acquiring firearms in the future. So I could really use, and I would really appreciate your support. So go ahead and hop over to Patreon, a link in the description, as well as a link to Bullseye Shooting Supplies. Thank you very much for tuning in. This has been Aaron with Ghost Raptor Gaming and Guns. Have a good day.